Before the Rings of Power, there were the Silmarils. Before Sauron, there was his master Morgoth. Before Aragorn and Arwen, there was Beren and Luthien. Join us as we explore Tolkien and all the ages of Middle-earth with your hosts from theonering.com, Jonathan Watson and Michael Grumbine.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 143. I bet you didn't know that, Michael. 143.
I did actually. I looked it up beforehand.
Dang it.
I never do.
So on top of this.
Someone asked me, how many episodes have you guys done? How long have you been going for? I said, this doesn't tell you because we switched from 1 week, every week to every other week.
Week for now? Yeah.
Yeah, but I had to look it up.
No.
143.
Yeah. Do you know what episode of the Hobbit we're on now?
Off
the top of the
probably
screen.
29.
Well, yeah, you got it right. 29. Guessed.
Yeah. I just
wonderful.
guessed.
Amazing.
I knew it was the late 20s.
Yeah. Wow. Nuts. Anyway, we're back on The Hobbit, everybody. This summer has been a little bit nuts for both of us, so we appreciate your patience as we go through things. And so we did shift it up last week a bit, or last 2 weeks ago, into what we revealed to you guys. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. Before we do, hey everybody, give us a review on Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Anywhere else? Does anybody else listen to podcasts anywhere else? iHeartRadio is a thing, I guess. Anyway, we'd appreciate that. A few more reviews, a few more listeners. Yeah. And thank you again to our supporters, which keep us going, keep us supplied, make sure we can pay the bills. Thanks to Lynn and Rich for always being a sponsor. And then if you want to become a member, go to theonering.com/member. It's $4 a month. You get the extended podcast and you get to access our monthly Zoom chats, of which we just had one of the day we released. So we'll do one again in September. We did one on Monday the 18th. However, we hope you join us there, everybody. And so, without further ado, we do have to jump into okay, again, we talked about this beforehand. StreamYard changed where all the videos are. There it is. Okay, there we go. All right, we have to jump into our
Hobbit Facts.
Michael, did you know that Ted Sandyman and Farmer Cotton like to argue about whether or not Bywater is a village, and that the only way to resolve it is to find the rule book that will tell them the truth of their little corner of the Shire?
No.
They like to argue about that sort of stuff. And did you know that the only person capable of finding this book is the Hobbit Carl Diggle?
What? What is even happening here? I do not know.
I'm pointing this out because I did a live stream of the Tales of the Shire a couple weeks ago. Was it a week ago? It was a little more than a week ago now. And this Hobbit fact from Tales of the Shire, where Ted Sandyman and Farmer Cotton argue about whether Bywater is a village or not, is the first quest that you have to do in this awesome, awesome game. And
I did notice how much you loved the game.
Oh my gosh. I spent 2 hours playing the game. Clearly, guys, okay, if you didn't know, if you didn't listen to last week's episode, Tales of the Shire came out, the cozy Hobbit game that's gotten middling reviews at best, and I decided to play it. I decided to go in, create my Hobbit. There's no male or female Hobbit, there's just body type. So I assigned this Hobbit at creation to be a male-ish Hobbit. You can't even tell. And I just paused it here on the screen, and I gave him the awesome Hobbit name, Carl Diggle. And every time I said his name or saw his name on the screen, I had to chuckle because it is the least Hobbit-like name and kind of inappropriate, it feels like, too. So anyway, played Tales of the Shire. I can't recommend playing it, but that was the whole first. That was what I spent my 2 hours doing was getting this rule book, whether they could determine whether or not. Oh, and the rule book, they sent me around to like 4 or 5 different people, and then the rule book just ended up being at the house that I live in. After all that,
I mean, everything's at the house you live in. The game exists at the house you live in. So, I mean, there's other things, but that's. I'm really glad that you got a chance to take a good diggle at the developers of the game.
Oh, I couldn't handle it.
So bad.
I couldn't handle the game. So anyway, we're 0 for 2 in the last, maybe 0 for 3 actually in the last 3 Lord of the Rings games. We got the Gollum game. We got what is that Mines of Moria game? Return to Moria.
Yeah, Return to Moria.
that I did not play, didn't really care about. That was like, it probably was more interesting than this here. And then Tales of the Shire. So I spent $35 on this dumb game to play it for 2 hours just because I felt like I had to. It was really stupid of me, but I did that anyway.
I don't like those. I don't like the comfy games.
Well, the dumbest thing about these games is one, it's inhabiting a world that has been so well established by the books and by the films, and when it's neither, it just feels cheap. And so they really needed to step up their Middle Earth game here. And two, like, there's no danger, right? The point of Hobbits is to put them outside of Hobbit-like situations, and when you just leave them in the Shire the whole time, they get kind of boring.
Exactly. Yeah, what's funny about the 3 games you mentioned that have been the only games that have come out in the last 5-6 years on Lord of the Rings, is that the only one I might have played was the Return to Moria, and because it's a cool concept of the dwarves retaking Moria, but because I play the oldest and most successful Lord of the Rings video game, Lord of the Rings Online, and Moria is simply awesome in that game. Love Moria. It's one of the best designed regions and fantastic quest lines. And I just had no desire to play this other game, which didn't actually, was actually kind of, it wasn't a storyline, so to speak, in that regard. It was, from what I gathered, it was more of just this like survival game where you see how long you can last.
Yeah. It seems like it's, I don't know, a real-time strategy game where you're just collecting the minerals and the tools
right, and you got to
things
deal
like that
with some of the economics and things
without
like
the strategy. Maybe. So anyway,
I like the heroism. As long as you're not playing Gollum, I like the heroism.
Oh, that game was still worse than this game. That one game was just frustrating.
I mean,
that
game was epically bad. I've never seen a game where the whole studio shuts down within weeks of the game coming out. That's
that's true. Yeah. The real question is, which is worse, the Rings of Power, the Gollum game, or Tales of the Shire?
Worse can be said in many ways. So
which game struck you, or which entity strikes you as the least Tolkien-like and has the most problems? Or creates the most problems too. See, for me, it's the Rings of Power, because the Rings of Power, it just ruins so much stuff. It ruins the entire Second Age. It ruins the characters. The Gollum, and it's sent out to such a mass audience, whereas the Gollum game, nobody actually played it. Tales of the Shire is such a small subsection of people that would want to play it, whereas the Rings of Power tries to be this grand story, and it fails at everything that it does.
100% agree with you. The Gollum game sucks because everything about it sucks, actually. But the whole premise of playing the evil guy, and then you already know the end of the story, is terrible. The Tales of the Shire is terrible because, like you said, there's only a tiny subset of people who actually want to stay in the Shire. Like, the whole point of the Shire is that it's a beginning point and an end point for Tolkien's story. So it's where the heroes start, and it's like this vision of what they want to return to, and then of course it gets ruined in the scouring of the Shire. But then Sam undertakes the task over many years of restoring the Shire, Sam and everyone else. But at least, I mean, maybe if they'd done that might have
totally
been a little more interesting.
Yeah,
like the renewal of the Shire, after the scouring, that would be kind of cool, because then you'd be able to see, you could rebuild towns, and you can do gardens, and there would be still some conflict quests that had to do with people that were still around. It'd be fun. But then Rings of Power does something totally different. It just takes all of Tolkien's work and perverts it. It just takes it and goes, so here's a bunch of characters, and we know a lot about some of them, and we know a bit about others, and we'll just change it all to fit our own postmodern craptastic idea of how things should be, and make it shallow to boot. I mean, one of my favorite memes from all that, I know this is weird off the wall, but there's a meme where there's a snapshot of Boromir as in the extended editions, with him, like the vision of him holding the bridge at Osgiliath with his Boromir with his armor and stuff. Yeah, and then Elendil with the Rings of Power shoot with him and the other people from Numenor and their horrible 3D printed community theater costumes. And the caption under Boromir says, Numenor at its lowest and most degenerate
Oh yeah,
ebb,
I remember
and
this.
then Numenor at its height, the height of its power and greatness. And I mean, it wasn't really the height in Elendil, but with Elendil, but not the beginning of Rings of Power anyway. But it's close enough, and it's just the contrast is so bad between everything about how he looks and the whole vibe of it. You know, Rings of Power just takes a good thing and twists it. So yeah. Anyway.
There you go.
Oh, you
That's
found
the
it.
one.
Yes. Gondor at its weakest, Numenor at its most powerful. Yeah.
And the
Exactly.
budget too.
And the budget.
It looks like it totally like what Elendil's wearing. It totally looks like the kind of plastic armor you put on as a kid. Like, you know, remember the Armor of God toys? I don't know if you ever saw those. Like,
I never saw
you get
those.
the helmet and you get the sword and you get this thing, right? It was what grandmas bought their kids in order to say, like, look, it's cool. It's a warrior, but you're a warrior for God. Anyway,
Yeah,
the whole armor. But that's what it looks like. That's the quality of this. It's this plastic breastplate that he's wearing.
It totally does look like it. Or you know, for grown people, it looks like that one piece of armor in the back of the community theater storeroom that's only one size. So for a guy like this actor, it goes on small, but it's like armor of dubious origin. Like it could be Greek era, or it could be medieval, or it could, because they only have one piece of armor, so they got to wear it for every play that they decide to put on at the community theater. It's just so bad.
It's sad. It is sad. Yeah. So it is the worst. All right, let's move on to what's much, much better, which is The Hobbit. Chapter 12, Inside Information. We're on the second half of this chapter now. And Michael, and we're starting, just so you guys know, we are starting at the first words Smaug speaks to Bilbo in this chapter. So it's at the lines, "Well, thief, I smell you and I feel your air." So Michael, give us a brief overview of this chapter and the major points that happen, and then we'll start
sure.
discussing.
There's not a lot of major points because most of the chapter is the conversation between Bilbo and Smaug, and then after Bilbo escapes, so they have a long conversation wherein Bilbo riddles his way through, trying to not tick the dragon off, but give him, have the dragon try to guess who he is, or not guess. In the case of Bilbo's hoping he doesn't guess, but much about him. And the dragon's fascinated and trying to figure out who he is and where he's from. And then at the very end, Bilbo runs away, and the dragon singes him, breathes after him. He, of course, can't see him explicitly, but he knows he's running back up the passage. And then Bilbo, much more worse for the wear, comes out the top, talks to the dwarves, and they describe all kinds. And Bilbo's very worried because of his conversation, and asks them all to go back into the tunnel. And they don't want to at first. They don't think there's much danger in their little alcove high on the mountainside, but they do. And then they hold the door open. They leave the door open, but they move their stuff inside the passageway at the top of the passageway, and then they proceed to have this long discussion about the dragon and his treasure, and what they knew, what they remember of old, and everything else, and the conversation Bilbo had. And then Bilbo finally just gets, like, his spidey sense goes off. He gets a premonition that bad things are going to happen, and so he convinces them to close the door, which it does with a click, which means they're kind of locked in, and just as soon as they do that, Smaug comes down like the fury of the gods on the mountainside, actually basically smashes the whole mountainside, all the alcove where they're at, everything is ruined, everything's destroyed. They would have been killed if they had been out there. And as it is, even in the tunnel, bits and pieces of stones are falling down from the tunnel top. So Smaug goes full rage monkey on the side of the mountain, destroys everything, feels a little better about it, and then off he goes flying to Lake Town, where he has figured out that they at least came from in part way, and they are stuck in the tunnel. So that is the rest of this chapter.
Yeah, and it's really, I mean, it is the first chapter where we get to know Smaug now. We get to really, really know him, and this, in a sense, as Tolkien was writing The Lord of the Rings, it caused an issue because he realized he kind of had to retcon Smaug into Middle-earth because he never really had before. Like, it was, or at least into Lord of the Rings. I think at this point he knew it was Middle-earth, and so, his dragon was inspired. Like we'll talk about in a little bit about from Glaurung and his interactions with Turin, and how he spoke with Turin too, and even some of the names that they give each other. But here in an unfinished tale, the quest for Erebor, or the quest of Erebor. I think it's the quest of Erebor in Unfinished Tales. Tolkien retcons. Retroactively connects Smaug into the story of the ring, in the sense that Gandalf is saying he had to something about the dragon because he knew there was something coming that would be bad. And so here's I'm going to read a couple lines from this here, just to kind of show how he does that before we get into the details of the rest of this chapter. This is from Unfinished Tales, The Quest of Erebor. The dragon Sauron might use with terrible effect. Often I said to myself, I must find some means of dealing with Smaug. This is in his discussions, I believe, with Thorin at the time. But a direct stroke against Dol Guldur is needed still more. We must disturb Sauron's plans. I must make the council see that. So he essentially was saying, like, we can't have this dragon that Sauron could use. We must start dealing with it. And in the same way, we must start dealing with Dol Guldur. And then a little bit later in the chapter, he writes, as Gandalf, when you think of the great battle of Pelennor, do not forget the battle of Dale. Think of what might have been dragonfire and savage swords in Erebor. There might be no queen in Gondor. We might now only hope to return from the victory here to ruin and ash. But that has been averted, because I met Thorin Oakenshield one evening on the edge of the spring, not far from Bree. A chance meeting, as we say in Middle-earth. If chance you call it. But yeah, so you do. Yeah, it's a nice way of saying, look, this story is important because we had to address the problem of the dragon. And who better to address the problem of the dragon than the dwarves that want revenge against it and will stop at nothing as long as there's a hobbit there to prod them forward into actually dealing with it.
Right. And that's important to point out, because as he does the retcon, you get the sense that although Providence takes a heavy hand in it, that, I mean, I shouldn't say you get the sense. It is explicitly called out in the second half of this chapter that the dwarves' plan is a little lacking. Like, they don't even have a plan for cartage or portage for the treasure.
Yeah.
To, Smaug sort of, it's funny because at one point in the conversation, he confirms what Bilbo had said before to the dwarves, that if he had been there 100 years, he couldn't take out all the to treasure. And Smaug actually says almost that exact line. That you could, it would take you 100 years to get everything out, and then how would you get it back? And Smaug, who's an incredibly intelligent creature, from a brief riddling conversation, figures out that Bilbo is the 14th and that he was probably promised the 14th share. Turns out, like knows like, as we say in philosophy. So the mind of the dragon and the mind of the dwarves works on the same way when it comes to contracts and treasure and stuff. And Smaug quickly guesses even what their contract might have been with Bilbo, the dwarves' contract, and he guesses right. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's a fascinating chapter in a lot of ways, because the dragon, this is an intelligent being. This is not a dumb beast or a monster of that sort where you just got to kill it because it's just this raging monster. Smaug is highly intelligent, and in the heritage of dragons, so to speak, in the lore of dragons, especially Beowulf and the dragon, and then the Sigurd, and in the Elder Edda with Sigurd and his dragon that he actually ends up talking to while it dies, riddling while it dies, so it doesn't just lash out and try to kill him in its death throes. But there's a long tradition of dragons liking to talk, and also dragon spells being used in their speech. Mm-hmm. An interesting parallel with Saruman, where the words of the dragon, in both cases enemies of the protagonist, but the words are dangerous, and you can easily be lured into a false sense of security, into giving up, into all sorts of things by the power of words.
Well, this comes to I think the whole point of the naming and the riddling in there, because Sauron doesn't know who Bilbo is in a way, and names are important, right? We have sword names that are.
You mean Smaug? You said Sauron.
So Smaug, yes, Smaug. It's important, and so without the name, in a sense, he doesn't have the power over Bilbo that he would have otherwise, because he can't name the creature in front of him. He can't give it. Words are important, and Tolkien knew this. In fact, one of the things that was brought up, did we bring this up 2 weeks ago? This was in, I believe, the Annotated Hobbit, where it makes the point that Tolkien's friend was it Owen Barfield, believed that originally words had inherent meaning based on what they were describing. Like it was actually, there was some sort of connection between the word and the thing that wasn't just somebody naming something. Like there was a real visceral connection, a worldly, like
right.
I can't remember the words that they used.
Yeah, Barfield's position was a reaction to the nominalists in the end of the 19th and beginning of the 20th century, and their whole idea was, hey, words are just sounds, and anyone can make a sound about anything. There's nothing inherent about them at all.
Okay.
And Barfield was pushing back, in a similar way that Chesterton pushed back on some of their nominalist ideas as well. But Barfield's pushback was essentially, no, actually, there's deep power of words have not just meaning but are substantial meaning, like there's something in the essence of the word, but power as well. And so and which is an old tradition from all sorts of ancient civilizations, that you have to learn the true name of a thing in order to get power over it. And so names mean something. They're not just,
or you have to go seek your true name too by going out on a quest,
discover it. Yes.
And so this is where we get through all the different riddles of Bilbo's names, which is kind of fun, but it doesn't give him any power over it. So we get words, we get things like let's see, I come from under the hill, and under the hills and over the hills my paths have led, which of course is under the hill, back end where he lives under the hill. I am through the air, and through the air I am he that walks unseen. So the eagles and then the ring. I am the clue finder, the web cutter, the stinging fly. Now, I don't know if you caught this whole thing about clue finder. You're like, what do you mean by the clue finder? Did you see?
I didn't.
So in the original, this is in I think the History of the Hobbit book. In the original version of the History of the Hobbit, the first draft, he's using string in order to find his way around, right? In order to return to where he was, to know where he is. So he has a winded up ball of spider thread he uses to find his way to the spider colony and back to the path. And so this is a clue. This is literally called a clue. A clue finder dates back to the first draft, where I'm just reading it, where it would have very naturally fit with web cutter and stinging fly, because clue finding, let me get this right, let's see, it's the Greek hero Theseus found his way out of the labyrinth in Crete by sneaking a clue of thread. So that's where the word clue comes from. And so clue, I guess, is a wound up ball of thread. Right. And so
it is. Clue. Yeah. It's obviously spelled differently in Greek, but that's right. I had heard that before in my college days about the clue of thread, but I never connected it with the word clue.
Right. So here, clue finder, this is probably harkening back to the original draft where he has him using like Theseus, a clue of thread, and he's now the clue finder. So anyway, there's a little side note. Doesn't really change anything, but it's sort of still stuck there, and he never edited it. Maybe he would have edited had he finished his edit of The Hobbit, which he got tired of. He buries his friends alive. He drowns them and draws them alive again from the water. He comes from the end of a bag, but no bag went over me. I love that. That's the funny thing. But he was not caught by the elves, but he lives at the end of the bag, but no bag went over me. I bet Tolkien was having so much fun when he was coming up with these things.
You can just imagine he had a great. I mean, that was the whole. I mean, he just loved words. He even mentioned. This is from the annotated Hobbit. He even mentioned that interview a year after the original Hobbit was made, that the name Smaug actually is what he calls a low philological jest. Because it comes from the primitive Germanic verb smugen, which means to squeeze through a hole. So Smaug is like a form of the having squeezed through a hole, like the past tense of having squeezed through a hole. He's a Smaug or a smugen.
Yeah, and we get the friend of bears and the guest of eagles. He's the ring wearer, the luck wearer, the barrel rider. And then Smaug says, that's better, but don't let your imagination run away with you. Now he's sort of like, he's almost confusing Smaug a little bit. Smaug's like, wait. Like, he's just imagining everything, which is kind of funny because he's not. All this is true, essentially.
Well, and I saw Smaug's replies as like oppositional replies, like pushing him
he's trying to get more out of him. I agree.
He wants to get more, so he's like he's throwing doubt on everything he says, or at least letting it be known that it's insufficient or not credible. He calls it some creditable. Sorry, not credible, but creditable. Interesting. I wonder if Smaug knows about Bjorn. Because he just mentions friend of bears once, and like the eagles he mentions multiple times. The spiders from Mirkwood, he gives lots of different names having to do with his interactions with the spiders. Obviously, he makes jokes about living in a hill twice, Bag End and Underhill, but he only mentions the bears once. And
well, certainly Smaug would have known the eagles.
Yes,
the eagles
absolutely.
In their battles with the dragons.
And he says that directly. He says guest of eagles, and then he says he came through the air. So that's an obvious one. He just says friend of bears. Like, what does that even mean? Like, friend. I mean, if Smaug knows about Bjorn, then he'd probably put it together. But no clue on that one, or needs no hint that Smaug understands that one. That part of it.
Yeah, and it's at this point that Tolkien actually does write. It's the right way to, or it's this is the course. This, of course, is the way to talk to dragons if you don't want to reveal your proper name, which is wise, and don't want to infuriate them by a flat refusal, which is also very wise. So he's kind of hitting at the point like, don't give them your name, don't give them power over you by giving them your actual name. But it's the barrel writer problem. The barrel, using the word barrels, that's what tips Smaug off. That's really the one moment, because he says, I haven't been down that way for an age. But it must be a nasty scheme of those miserable tub trading lakemen. So when he's a barrel rider, unless he assumes Barrel is the name of his pony.
I love how Smaug has English idioms in his speech. He says, "Lakemen, some nasty scheme of those miserable tub trading lakemen, or I'm a lizard." Like, is that the way dragons talk? Like, either this thing is true or this other thing is true, which is clearly not true. Or I'm a lizard, like, or I'm a, it's a thing that gets done all the time in English, which is, or I'm this, some
it's a weird colloquialism
animal.
Of like,
so very very English habits of speech that Smaug has. Tolkien's definitely not make. See, I saw a difference in the register of his speech. Sometimes Smaug talked like a bantering Englishman, and sometimes Smaug talked like an epic dragon, like when he goes off about revenge.
I'm going to read that because that's my favorite line from the whole book. And I will say Andy Serkis in his reading in his audiobook does a great job of reading that. It's so visceral and angry. Yeah. Right. So maybe I'll stick it at the end here if I have time to figure out how to record it from Audible. Nice. But yeah, it's really good. So he goes through all these names, right? And I wanted to bring up the point that this is essentially what Turin does with Glaurung, or what Glaurung does to Turin when he names him at the end. But he names Turin now with the real name. This is after the sack of Nargothrond, and he's led out Finduilas, right, and and every the queen, everything is. He's standing there with his sword held, Turin, and everybody's marched across. And he can't do a thing because now Glaurung has complete control over him.
He's paralyzed him, yeah.
And so Glaurung says this to Turin. He says, "Thankless fosterling, outlaw, slayer of your friend, thief of love, usurper of Nargothrond, captain foolhardy, and deserter of your kin." So he names him these sorts of names that Bilbo is using it for himself in the same style, but now he has complete control over Turin. So when you know their name, when you know who he is, you can, I don't know, in a way that they have this power to exert control over the weak-minded. That's what Sauron. I said it again. That's what Glaurung did, and that's what I think Smaug is trying to do in the tradition of dragons that has certainly been laid before him. Although I will say, one of the things I thought that was interesting that I learned in the history of The Hobbit is that he made the point that Tolkien was trying to redefine dragons again, because. Let me see. This is what he had written. When Tolkien began writing, dragons had dwindled to whimsical fairy tale creatures in the popular mind, treated more as figures of fun than the deadly menaces they had been in old legends. So Tolkien essentially recreated dragons again. He raised them up from this sort of fairy tale bin of childish toys into the real, dangerous, massive wickedness that they were, so that now he redefined them just with the Hobbit, so that now everybody who uses a dragon essentially uses it the way that Tolkien did. So not only did Tolkien define orcs and dwarves and elves, he also redefined dragons for everybody at that point. I thought that was a really interesting point of just one man did it all.
He was a professor of Anglo-Saxon literature or Anglo-Saxon, and he the fact that he returned dragons back to essentially their Anglo-Saxon status. Where they're laying waste to the countryside, and even the greatest hero of the Anglo-Saxon people, Beowulf, is slain by the dragon. So while he slays the dragon as well.
Yeah. All right. So at this point, do you have anything else to say about the whole riddling, cluing game between Smaug and
the
Bilbo?
riddling? No. Well, the point ultimately in the repartee back and forth is that Bilbo wants to see. It says that Bilbo has seen something unusual that he wants more information about, and so he goads the dragon into showing him his whole body, and finds this weak spot. As Tolkien says, a large patch in the hollow of his left breast, as bare as a snail out of its shell. So Smaug apparently has his body is covered with gems, diamonds
encrusted.
that have been crusted. He has been embedded in his scales, and but there is this one spot that Smaug can't see, which is interesting. Means that his head, from a physiological perspective, his head can't actually bend and look at his belly in total. But anyway, for whatever that good, Bilbo, and obviously, you'd think a dragon would like mirrors, but I guess there's no mirror large enough for a dragon. So Bilbo discovers this useful fact, which will indeed be useful later on. But that was the only thing besides the Smaug and his. I think the thing you're about to read is, in fact, that's the crown of his achievement of the Smaug persona, basically.
Yeah.
He laughs because Bilbo actually tells him, "Look, we haven't just come here for gold; we've come here for revenge." Why do you think Bilbo does that? By the way, it's a strange thing to do, is to tell a dragon, "Yeah, we're here to kill you." By the way.
I don't know, because he didn't seem too confident even when he said that, because it's at the point, right? I don't know. Do you have an idea? I
thought it was a distraction. So I think Bilbo is like playing it by ear, literally, and he so he wants to get Smaug off of the treasure side, because the thought of people stealing his treasure infuriates Smaug, and Bilbo has seen evidence of that already, because Smaug went and razed the countryside and the mountainside and killed their ponies and went on a tear after they stole one cup. So I always thought Bilbo was just trying to tell him, "Oh, no, you think we're here just for the gold, but there's more than that." And then he's sort of like, "Well, what else is there?" So we're here for revenge. But I just don't see, unless Bilbo has it all planned out, where he's going to use that, goading Smaug into showing his body and whether he has any weaknesses, which I don't think he thought of before. I'm never quite sure. That gold was only an afterthought with us, he says, which is not true, by the way. They sing whole songs about it
yes, right.
back in the Shire.
Homeland,
so,
yeah.
Very detailed songs about their treasure. So it's not an afterthought. We came over hill and under hill by wave and wind for revenge. Wait, where did they go by wave? I don't think they came by wave anywhere. There's no water.
No water. No.
That's
wave, I mean Lake Town.
Okay, you're right.
Yeah.
Boat ride from Lake Town. I just thought it was Tolkien's love of alliteration, by wave and wind. We came over hill and under hill by wave and wind for revenge. Surely, O Smaug, the unassessably wealthy.
That's the greatest line.
I love it. Some of his phrases for Smaug are awesome.
I think they kept that in the movies. I think they did. I feel like
they kept a lot of this in the movies. Yeah. You must realize that your success has made you some bitter enemies. Then Smaug really did laugh, a devastating sound which shook Bilbo to the floor, while far up in the tunnel, the dwarves huddled together and imagined that the Hobbit had come to a sudden and nasty end. So, and then Smaug goes on his.
This is the line. Now, you did say a couple weeks ago, or 2 episodes ago, that you would read in the voice of Smaug that you read to your kids. Would you? Do you have tea available? Because you said you need the tea.
Let me just take a quick swig here. I can give it a shot, and I don't know quality of a microphone how this will come out. So my apologies.
If you want to read that revenge line, that is the most awesome paragraph in this chapter.
Sure. Yeah,
here's why. Let me just say why I think this is. Because in this one chapter, he establishes Smaug's age, Smaug's destructiveness, and his ability to exact revenge when he wants it on the people around him. And he creates Middle-earth just in this one paragraph by mentioning, talking about Girion, the Lord of Dale, and his sons, and all the warriors, and he's a thief in the shadows. He establishes the character of Smaug as the disastrous calamity that he is to Middle Earth in this one chapter, and the way he does it, I love it. So anyway,
yeah, it's a great paragraph. All right, so in the voice that Michael reads to his children, or something like it, "Revenge," he snorted, and the light of his eyes lit the hall from floor to ceiling like scarlet lightning. "Revenge! The king under the mountain is dead, and where are his kin that dare seek revenge? Girion, Lord of Dale, is dead, and I have eaten his people like a wolf among sheep. And where are his sons that dare approach me? I kill where I wish, and none dare resist. I laid low the warriors of old, and their like is not in the world today. Then I was but young and tender. Now I'm old and strong, deep in the shadows," he gloated. "My armor is like tenfold shields. My teeth are swords, my claws spears, the shock of my tail a thunderbolt, my wings a hurricane, and my breath death."
Wow. Okay. I might have to revise that. Andy Serkis's impression is the best. That was awesome. That was so good.
It's not
I love
Benedict Cumberbatch, but
the gutturalness of Smaug. Right? You get into that. That's really good. I like it.
Anyway,
can you read it to me next time? Can we just do an episode where you're like,
yeah, come over to my house, sit on my couch with my kids, and I got one more read in me, and then I got to go to grandkids. Hopefully, I've got a daughter that was just married, but the last of my children is my daughter Cecilia is now 8 years old, and we'll be reading The Hobbit to her starting after next month. So then,
wow.
I got one more read to me, and then it's on to grandkids when and if that happens.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, it's I don't know how well the microphone picked it up, but it's a lot of fun.
It did good. It's good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Wow. Well done. And that is that is the essence of Smaug in this here. The way that he speaks there, his gloating, his pride, and I don't know, he feels a little bit like a Bond villain who kind of will tell things accidentally.
Yeah, that's right. He doesn't give up his secret plan, because with Smaug there's no secret plan. It's just all well, he doesn't have a secret plan.
He gives up that like he's goaded into essentially showing his weakness, which is what a Bond villain ends up doing usually.
Half a page after this, he ends up showing off his impenetrable waistcoat. He says he says "Your information is antiquated," he snapped. "I am armored above and below with iron scales and hard gems. No blade can pierce me." But then he does this. It is rare and wonderful indeed. Absurdly pleased with Bilbo's praise of him. And then he shows off, and then he gives up his weak spot, which will require some bird language to convey. But nevertheless, as we'll see in the chapter to come, it is Smaug's undoing. His arrogance is his undoing, and
I also wanted to before we move, because it's really at this point that Bilbo, now that he knows this, he turns and runs after laughing at him. But Smaug describes dwarves to Bilbo, and I think it's the second best description of dwarves after Tolkien already did it last time. Remember?
That's true. Yeah.
Let me get that quote here. "I suppose they are skulking outside, and your job is to do all the dangerous work and get what you can when I'm not looking for them, and you will get a fair share? Don't you believe it? If you get off alive, you will be lucky." So essentially the same thing. It's like dwarves are kind of petty, and they're going to have other people do the work for them, and don't trust them. Although his is obviously a little bit more strident than what Tolkien said about it. But yeah, dwarves aren't exactly the best friends in the world to have. So don't go trusting
exactly
them.
Yeah, he starts with "don't have more to do with dwarves than you can help," and then he says right before the one part that you said, he said "you'll come to a bad end if you go with such friends." So he's got a low opinion of dwarves. And that's not a short joke. So
yeah. All right. So Bilbo he leaps back. He laughs at Smaug. Stupid mistake. Never laugh at a live dragon. as he makes that point, and it becomes doesn't he say it becomes a
favorite
saying,
phrase of his.
favorite phrase of his later? Yeah.
Yep.
And so he dives back into the hall, and then the dwarves are very, very, very interested in what he does, or in what he learns. But he's first annoyed by the thrush, the thrush who is sitting there still, because the thrush is listening. And this is where we get the line that we talked about earlier, a number of episodes ago, where the thrush is not just a simple bird. And this is how Thorin describes the thrush. Thrushes are good and friendly. This is a very old bird indeed, and is maybe the last left of the ancient breed that used to live about here, tamed to the hands of my father and grandfather. They were a long-lived and magical race, and this might even be one of those that were alive then, a couple of hundreds of years or more ago. The men of Dale used to have the trick of understanding their language and used them for messengers to fly to the men of the lake and elsewhere, which is important, of course, because... spoiler alert, I think, guys, if you haven't read this yet, I'm sorry, but this comes into the tale of how Bard ends up knowing what to do. And he's surprised. Anyway, we'll get into that. Anyway. But the other interesting thing is the whole idea of the snail again. I don't know if you noticed this here, and I don't know if this was just Tolkien writing and then not re-editing, or actually thinking about it. The thrush was slamming the nail, right, breaking it on the stone. Thrushes always have their stone to do it. But the way that Bilbo describes the belly of Smaug was, let me find this right here. There is a large patch in the hall of his left breast, as bare as a snail out of its shell.
Right.
So there's this sort of consistent idea of like the thrush, the snail, the dragon, and then going to Dale with the thrush. Like it all kind of weaves together. And I don't think that's
and snail's a strange. It's an unusual word. So the fact that he compares Smaug to a snail, and then he has the thrush breaking the snails. And it mentions it twice, once before Bilbo went down and once in this chapter.
Which then, when you think about it, right, the thrush essentially destroys the snail, and then the thrush is instrumental, just like killing the snail,
in destroying the bigger snail.
Destroying the bigger snail.
There's just Smaug.
Maybe, I don't know. Am I reaching? Maybe a little bit. But I thought it was a cool little analogy there between the three. And like you mentioned earlier, they're very interested now in the gold.
What I thought was awesome about that part was that basically you'd think that, creeping up on a sleeping dragon and sort of slaying him while he's sleeping would be the best route. But apparently it's not. It's really hard to do. So a nice frontal charge is apparently the best way to get him, which seems dubious. But in their discussion about the treasure specifically, they mentioned, it's really interesting. They do mention like shields and coats of mail, gilded silver and impenetrable, which I think is a reference to mithril. If they're actually impenetrable, then it's got to be mithril. But they call out specifically a batch of spears, a two-handed cup of thror, a coat of mail with 500 emeralds on it, made for the son of...
a necklace, actually. A necklace.
But which he gave... Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. He gave for the army of his eldest son. So, yeah, you're right. The necklace with 500 emeralds was given to the dwarves, and the coat, his eldest son, a coat of dwarf-linked rings, the like of which had never been made before, for was wrought of pure silver to the power and strength of triple steel. That's got to be the mithril coat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, right, yeah.
Or a mithril coat, because they say later on that it was made for the son, like it was made for a child. So that's probably where Lord Girion is got it made, and of course the Arkenstone they mentioned. So they mentioned the mithril coat. They mentioned this necklace of emeralds. They mention the Arkenstone. They mention a batch of spears made for King Bladorthin, hilariously, of course, because Bladorthin was originally the name of Gandalf.
Yeah.
In the first draft, and then the cup of thror as well gets a mention, which is interesting.
Yeah, and the Arkenstone's description. Again, I like
beautiful.
The way beautiful, like water in the sun. Okay, it was like a globe with 1,000 facets. It shone like silver in the firelight, like water in the sun, like snow under the stars, like rain upon the moon, which is it allows us to kind of imagine what is rain upon the moon, and it ends with that.
Yeah.
I like that. I thought actually in the films they did a really poor version of the Arkenstone because it somehow has this own light that casts out of it, almost like a magical glow that pours out of it. Very odd. I don't know.
Well, I think there is a passage here that would lead them to that, although it's debatable about whether it's giving out its own light or just catching the light. So you know, when we get to the passage, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
But I agree with you. I don't think they did it. They did this passage justice with their version of the Arkenstone.
Let's take a quick. I'm going to bring this up here just for those of you who are viewing. I'm going to find a quick image of it so that we can actually see what it looks like in the film. All right, there's one. Let's grab this one here. Yeah, okay. So check this out. So there's the Arkenstone. Bilbo holding it at one point, probably after the battle. There it is again. And 1,000 facets. Okay. It looks, you know what it reminds me of more? It reminds me of a marble from Men in Black, where it holds the galaxy inside of it.
Yeah, but actually, it's not even a globe. So that's the first thing. It's like it's like a pendant shape or teardrop, more teardrop-ish shape, or maybe a
oblong.
Looks like a marquee cut. No, not quite a marquee. It's more like an oblong. You're right.
It doesn't even seem like it's even cut in this film, right? Now it says it was like a globe with 1,000 facets. I would think there'd be some facets that you could see on it.
Well, but if you're going to compare it to a globe, it's got to be because it's spherical in some way. It's not. This isn't spherical.
Yeah, that's true. It is not. It is complete, and it's completely smooth, even though it's not spherical. There are no facets in it anywhere.
Well, that's arguable. There's some that you could say like very shallow facets. Like it's definitely no sharp facets. It looks very smooth. But there's another shot of it where I think you could see some light glinting off of a geometric looking place, sides of it. But anyway, yeah, I agree with you. It's not great, which is sad. And if it had emitted, now there are things in Tolkien that emit their own light, like the Silmarils emit light,
like Smaug's eyes.
Smaug's eyes emit light. Gollum's eyes emit light. They shone like lamps, and they lit the passage around Bilbo.
The spiders, yeah,
spiders, yeah.
I agree, but the way it's casting off as if it's these tendrils of light, I just it came across as special effectsy to me rather than a beautiful gem that they were in love with.
Yeah, I just don't think
magical.
I mean, I think they missed the description with the globe part.
Yeah.
It should have been a globe, which, by the way, makes it a lot more unusual because almost every gem you see is not a globe because it's so very difficult to get a globe of a precious stone that's of any size, and so people usually cut it differently. So anyway, yep, I agree. Tolkien's description's better. I mean, our audience will not be surprised to hear us say that.
You know, I just realized, I was just thinking about this. He talks about King Bladorthin, right? And Bladorthin was originally Gandalf's name.
Right.
This is the only time mentioned, looked up. There's no other mention of King Bladorthin anywhere. It makes that point in the history of the Hobbit and in the annotated Hobbit as well.
Right.
They should make a video game about King Bladorthin and how he was long since dead, because then you wouldn't be breaking any canon anywhere at all. And there's no other reference anywhere. We're all good with that. So
yeah, but Jonathan, the problem you're going to have is when they make a video game, are they going to try to keep to the spirit of Tolkien or not? Because ultimately, you're right, that'll keep them from breaking lore in any egregious way or terribly egregious way, the way they did with Galadriel, for example. But it's not going to save them from
no, I know,
considering their own dumb.
But at least they wouldn't ruin
ideas.
You know, maybe they wouldn't ruin Galadriel as the primary antagonist in the Rings of Power. Or
that was a travesty what they did with Galadriel.
Anyway, sorry into that. But yes, if you're wondering, King Bladorthin has no other reference anywhere else in Middle Earth. We don't even know whether he's a hobbit a man or an elf. Although it's suspected that he could be an elf because of the word Finn is used very often, and has a way as being let me read this here. Let's see. This is from the History of the Hobbit. It seems that he may have been here actually it says in the context here with the description of Bladorthin as long since dead, I guess it seems they may have been a man rather than an elf. Okay, that makes sense.
Although,
I misread that.
But then they went no, because then they go on and say that the name is an elven construction.
Right.
So it'd be unusual for a man to be named an elf name.
Right.
So it might be an elf. It's their argument that it's probably a man because he's long since dead does not hold weight for me. Plenty of elves die, as we know from the Silmarillion, and elven kings are especially susceptible to death. In fact, Thranduil himself is a king because his father Oropher was, made poor life choices at the Battle of the Last Alliance of Elves and Men in Morgoth, and elven kings die all the time in the Silmarillion. So the idea that there's an elven king that's long since dead is not a problem for me. So I don't know that. And so when you got an elven name, and I think that's a stronger argument. So I agree with your original take on it that this is probably an elf.
But just like, well, no, Tolkien does say Balrogs should have wings, actually. But I was going to say, like, this is up for debate. We don't know 100%. Although, because the name has Cinder an element of thin being gray, and Blador being the same thing as from Tolkien's Legendarium, I think Bladorwen. It means the wide earth. So gray earth, gray traveler, gray flat, like open space. Anyway, so the things kind of come together. So little aside there.
It is interesting that he spends so much time on dwarven treasure too. But you see that from his song too. When the dwarves sing about their treasure, they talk about all sorts of particulars like goblets and circlets and harps, and they're into the specifics.
Right, but it's not just treasure he's talking about. It's treasure for characters, or for the characters of Middle-earth. And so it's the cup of Thror, it's the necklace of Girion, which he gave it for his eldest son. So it's not just spears of
Bladorthin.
Yeah, so he doesn't even say like it was a great treasure and here are the the specific items in treasure. No, these treasures had meaning and this is what they were used for. And so he expands the world even just by talking about the treasure. And then he talks about the Arkenstone, which is of course the one thing that they ultimately do indeed want for there. So this is the point at which Bilbo then has this desire to close the door, a sense, like you said, his spidey sense, maybe his thrush sense, that comes up and says, I think we should shut the door, in the same way that, where is it in the Lord of the Rings? Why do I have this image of Elijah Wood saying, what does he say? Like, what part of the Lord of the Rings in the movies? Get off the road or put out the light, right? Put out the thing. Yeah, get off the road. It's the same sort of thing here. It's like, close the door. I feel the dragon in my marrow. I like this silence far less than the uproar of last night. Shut the door before it's too late. As you mentioned earlier, they shut the door and then it closes with a snap. No trace of a keyhole again, right? Magic, sort of magic-y dwarven doors. And that's when it all comes tumbling down around them. So we don't know exactly how Smaug is destroying the mountain, but large wings, large legs, powerful bodies, encrusted bellies. He's just tearing it all down around them wherever he thinks it is. So,
can I just give a vote? Before being destroyed by Smaug, this is the world's most useless door. It truly is. You can only open this door for like 2 minutes
that's great.
From the outside. Once a year. You got like 2 minutes or a minute. Yeah. Only if you have the right key held by the Dwarven King, and then you can open it from the outside if you're standing in the right place for like a minute while the sun shines, last ray of the sun shines on the door. From the inside, as we just learned here, apparently, you can't open it at all. So this is the most useless door ever. There's no keyhole. It closes with a click. It says specifically they were shut in the mountain, which implies very strongly telling you they couldn't get out the door from the inside. So you could only open it for 1 minute a year from the outside with the key, and that's it.
Okay, this means that in our extended edition, we have to talk about why they would make this door. We have to come up with a good reason for them to make this door. There has to be something that we can figure out.
Okay, well, we'll give it a shot.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so it's at this point, right, that they realize Smaug left his lair in silent stealth, even though he had nearly singed or burned, ultimately, Bilbo. I guess it makes him more dangerous in the sense that, like, they realize he's silent but deadly as well. He's not just a loudmouth. He can be quiet when he needs to be. But you hear him say at the end, barrel right. Okay, I'm going to try.
Go for it.
Right. Sparrow Rider, he snorted. Your feet came from the waterside, and up the water you came without a doubt. I don't know your smell, but if you are not one of those men of the lake, you had their help. They shall see me and remember who is the real king under the mountain. I don't get quite into the spittle as much as you do, I feel like. You really do a really good job of somehow using that additional, the spits flying in the anger. It's
good.
really
you did
good.
Pretty good. I like it.
I feel like more I'm the bad guy from Inspector Gadget. I'll get you, Gadget. Right, that sort of a thing.
That's pretty good. It was that's Doctor, what's his name? Dang it.
The hand. He's got a hand. The cat.
Yeah. All you ever see is his hand, but it's something else. His name isn't the hand. Anyway, forgot it. Forgot my youth.
I'm gonna have to look this up really fast. The villain is Dr. Claw. Okay.
Dr. Claw.
You were close. Right. You were close. All right. So that's how it leaves. The destruction of this Smaug is destruction of Smaug, destruction of Lake Town. It's all going to be coming down.
If you think about it, it's pretty impressive that a creature made of flesh and bone can actually collapse a mountainside. Like that's like stone is. I mean, you say what you want about things being strong, but to actually smash stone to pieces with your body, is like his tail. It specifically talked about smashing with his tail. Like, do you know?
But you've been up the Sierras, right? Like those stones aren't exactly the most in place, right? You could smash the mountain if you had enough hydraulics. You could smash parts of the mountain and they would come tumbling down. And I feel like that's what he's doing. I suppose if I imagine like a diplodocus or some huge dinosaur with its tail. Diplo what? Sorry, I don't know. I don't watch as many Jurassic Park movies as you to know all these.
You know what a brontosaurus is?
Yes, I do. Diplodocus, I think is what you said. Sorry, had to put that out.
My bad. Anyway, large dinosaur. How about that? So anyway, the point is a thing that can swing its tail as a weapon.
Oh, okay. Yes. That, yeah, 100%. Right. And swing its legs, right? Swing its arms. It can fly and like tear large boulders out and cast them down.
Remember, it has four arms. This isn't the Smaug from the movie, which was more pterodactyl-like. It had its two front arms merged into its wings, wyvern-like. So this is definitely a four-legged beast with wings as a separate appendages.
He doesn't do any of that in the movie, right? He just leaves and destroys Lake Town. Do I remember that right?
I have to admit to you, I watched the movies once and only once. So maybe we can do a party where we watch.
Yeah. Pretty sure it's
but I want the fan version. As we've said before, I want the fan version with only things from The Hobbit in it, which is like one movie instead of. I will not watch 3 Hobbit movies. No, hell no.
Not the extended editions.
No, I mean I don't mind the stuff from the extended editions if it was actually in the book, but there's that fan edit which combines all the stuff I think from the extended editions as well that's in the book.
That's right.
And it's like length of a normal movie, like 2.5 hours, 2 hours or something.
This is the whole scene. He leaves because they're trying to cover him in gold. Remember? And lure him into the thing, and then he gets out of that, and then he flies towards Dale for some reason. He doesn't give a reason for all that, but yeah, that was the building the better dragon trap there. It was horrible.
That's right, the Rube Goldberg dragon trap.
Oh my gosh, I'm just looking at the clips of this here because I have it on my computer, and I'm just like,
it's bad. It's bad. That's the end of our chapter.
That is the end of the chapter. We are finally through chapter 12. Sorry, guys. It took a month because of time off. And Tales of the Shire. I mean, who doesn't want us to actually review Tales of the Shire? So anyway, perfect, Michael. We're at an hour. Guys, we're going to get into our extended podcast. We'll talk about dragons some more. We'll talk about the door. The door is very important. And maybe let's muse a little bit about King Bladorthin and a video game with King Bladorthin, because that's necessary. We need to have a good video game. Without it, perhaps
there are so many good video games you can make from Tolkien's world of different times and places and fun. Just so much fun you could have. But
well, maybe what we need, because it's getting way easier to code video games, to make good video games. They don't have to look perfect, but they have to be engaging. They have to have a good storyline, because now it's so much easier with AI coding. You can get rid of all the drudgery of building the code and actually deal more with the story and with the characters and with the growth of the game into a world that you actually care about. maybe we'll see more and somebody can create something. Because right now, right, to create the video game, you need it's backed by the major, the ones with all the deep pockets, right? They're the ones that are making the video game, so they don't really care about the quality. They look like, hey, everybody loves Lord of the Rings. If we put the Lord of the Rings name on it, people will buy it. That's essentially all that's happening right now. Still, even though these games they're not made by big studios, they're getting enough money to just throw out something there in the hopes that they'll create something here. So hopefully,
it is funny to me that one of the hallmarks of the Jackson movies is that they were accepted by the fans for the most part, even of the fans of Lord of the Rings. I mean, there were the lore purists like us who had our problems with them, but eventually they were accepted by most people, even the great lovers of Lord of the Rings, because they mostly, 80-something%, stayed true to the story. And you'd think that a studio doing its analytics about how to make a movie from Tolkien's world would learn that and would say, you know what? I don't want to hear about all your aspirations in community theater and wanting to rewrite stuff. I just want I'm paying you guys to remake as close as possible. Make sure whatever you do not contradict the books ever at any time, period. Just make sure. And sure, you can, there's lots of things to fill in that the books never talked about. Make sure that those are, use your creativity there. Make sure that they're thematically in line with Tolkien's world. But do not change anything from the books ever, unless it truly must be done because you're making a movie versus a book. Okay, so that's the only time when you should be changing it. Other than that, I mean, you'd think that because if you're a studio head and you're like, I want to tap into that sweet cash that exists potentially from all the people that love Middle Earth, how best to do that? Well, I don't know. Why don't I do a little research and look at those people and all what they love? And it turns out what they love is Tolkien. Nobody loved all the dumbass fan fiction. Sorry language, but all the fan fictions come out over the years. Nobody loves any of that. That's terrible.
Yeah, it is.
What we love is Tolkien's work. And so you'd think that if they're making a movie, and even if they're totally mercenary and they're like, we just want the cash grab, you'd think they would start with the basics, which is, how about start with the principle one, don't contradict the books. Do exactly what it says in the books, unless it's absolutely impossible from making a transition from book to movie. Other than that, fill in artistically, sure. But it's so...
Yeah, and irritating. Before we close, let's remember that this is the problem, because we know that what... J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay said is like, we wanted to write the story that Tolkien never wrote and put it right next to his on the bookshelf. So they are literally trying to add and change things and make it their own, rather than taking what Tolkien wrote. And that's the one thing. Okay, last comment before we get into our extended edition is that the one thing that ties all Tolkien fans together, even the ones that have completely differing opinions about how to approach Tolkien and the things that they love about him, because it is a wide swath, because he speaks to so many people and his ability to write and the world that he creates, is that if you stick to what Tolkien wrote, you will have 100% of everybody behind you. You're not going into areas where you're trying to make comments about today's society, or bringing in things that you liked better from other stories, or bringing in characters from another tale and saying like, maybe we can make them fit here, or at least put something like it in. No, stick to what Tolkien had, and 100% of the fan base will be behind you and will promote it.
It shocks me that the people that make decisions about how to make money at the studios don't do that, because I don't even care if they don't love Tolkien. They could care less. You could care less about Tolkien if you just do what you just described. All they have to do is, and how hard is that? It's a fan base for a reason. It's a fan base because they're fans of the original work. Yeah. So how about we just stick with the original work? Right. How about that? Right. Also, the original work happens to have some of the best fictional dialogue ever written. And monologues and dialogues, and so, which is why Jackson ended up like basically defaulting. That was the default setting. He changed a bunch of stuff and added new lines that weren't there, but it was a default of theirs during shooting, that they would go and open up the books and be like, what was the conversation here? Let's start with that script, and then if we have to change it. But
I'm speaking of that, I want to get one more opinion on something that went down a little bit on X this week, X/Twitter, or 2 weeks ago, was it was between the Tolkien sub community there. You might have seen it, is the Sam's monologue at the end of The Two Towers. We shouldn't even be here by all rights. Remember that line? Like,
Yes.
he talks about the heroes in the old stories and all that. Let's talk about that a little bit, because I couldn't kind of stand that monologue, and so many people love it so much. It just bothered me the whole time he was talking about it. So let's talk about that. But before we do, Michael, we have to say goodbye to everybody here. We'll be back in 2 weeks with chapter 13, Not at Home.
My
We'll
dear freeloaders, we love you. Please subscribe, and you can listen to the conversation continue, however, and we can love you more. Until then, take care.
TheOneRing.com/.